So in today's video, we are going to talk about the pros and the cons of Rock Hill. So if you're thinking about buying a house here in the Metro Charlotte area and have started to consider Rock Hill, this video is for you. And I'm going to encourage you to stick around to the end because we're going to talk about some cons and you might not be familiar with all of these I'm going to list. If this is your first time to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe bell notification so you can be the first to learn about the market conditions right here in Charlotte, North Carolina. If we haven't met, my name is Dean Hardy. I'm a local realtor team lead and I host this channel. And I get calls, text messages, emails every single day from people like you. And I absolutely love it. So if you're thinking about making a move here to the Charlotte area or Rock Hill or one of the other suburbs, whether it's in 9 days, 90 days, go ahead and reach out to me today. I'm going to put my contact information right below there in the description. I would love to connect with you, learn a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish and help you and your family make a nice smooth move right here to Charlotte, North Carolina. So we have got a lot to talk about today because Rock Hill is one of the fastest growing suburbs in the entire Metro Charlotte area. Now, if you're not familiar with Rock Hill, it's just across the state line in York County. So it's a real good location. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second, but there's a ton of reasons why people are starting to move to Rock Hill. Now, the number one thing we're going to talk about, of course, is real estate. And that is one of the primary driving forces, which is the affordability. So the house prices in Rock Hill are significantly less than the medium house prices in the Metro Charlotte area. So let's go ahead and give you some specifics. So the medium house price right now in Rock Hill is $350,000. Now, when you consider that to Charlotte, the Metro Charlotte area, that's $425,000 as I'm recording this video right now. So there's $75K swing difference between the medium house price in Rock Hill to Charlotte. So you're starting to see why people are starting to call this place home. Now, another thing that I'm going to throw out there to you is for the past 12 months, Rock Hill's house prices have increased 10%, which is significantly higher than the 6% in the Metro Charlotte area. So the secret is out now about Rock Hill, but there's still affordable houses to be had. So if you're thinking about making that move to Rock Hill, there's still a ton of options. It's still very affordable. How long is that going to last? I'm not exactly sure, but there is still options out there for you. Now I'm going to piggyback number two, the second pro, which is property taxes, because it's tied straight into the house prices. Another thing that people are moving down there is obviously the affordability of buying houses, getting more for your dollar in Rock Hill, but also the taxes. Taxes are lower in general in South Carolina, in the York County, South Carolina area than they are in Mecklenburg County, which is Charlotte. So again, everybody has to pay taxes, but if you have to pay them, let's pay a little bit less, right? So if we're going to take that medium house price of $350,000 for Rock Hill, in last year, 2023, you would be paying $2,200 a year in property taxes, which is, just a little bit under $200 a month, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, I get clients that reach out to me specifically that are moving from other areas. Now, not everywhere is as more affordable as the Metro Charlotte area is. We're less than the national average. But when they start to consider Rock Hill and they see those taxes that they'll be paying with the property values, they're blown away. So I had some clients that reached out to me that were moving down from New Jersey, just outside of New York. And their house that they had, it was a nice house, but for what they get for their money in New Jersey compared to what you get here in anywhere in Charlotte, but specifically Rock Hill, they were absolutely blown away. And then we have that conversation about property taxes, and it's a huge advantage. It's real, and it makes a big difference to people's lifestyles. And after all, people move to the South for a specific reason, maybe to get away from a specific state, or you want a little bit more, restrictive, less restrictions. The South does offer that, and then when you have that with the nice weather that we have, lower taxes, affordability, it's like the perfect tsunami. All right, so number three pro is the location, and this one's pretty straightforward. So like I touched on earlier, if you're not too familiar with the Charlotte metro area, our state line, we're a border town, we're on North and South Carolina. Our state line is not straight, it's actually diagonal. So you can live in North Carolina, you can live in the Charlotte metro area in the North Carolina side, but you can be further south than living in South Carolina. I know it's kind of confusing, but the way that the state line is, it's kind of diagonal. So it does paint a picture. So you can easily live in the South Carolina suburbs and commute to Charlotte if that's where your employment, that's where your working is. So just to give you some kind of driving times. Now these times are outside of rush hours. Obviously that does affect, we do get traffic here like any major city across the US, but if you're driving from Rock Hill to Uptown Charlotte, it's about a 35-40 minute drive. Now if you're driving out to the airport, it's a slightly different direction, less traffic. It might be slightly more miles, but it's less traffic. It's about 35 minutes as well. Now also South Park is about 30 minutes and Ballantyne is 30 minutes. Now both South Park and Ballantyne are south of Uptown Charlotte, and the reason I mention those two, because outside of Uptown Charlotte, South Park is the second biggest job hub in the metro area, followed by Ballantyne, which has Ballantyne's Commons, and there's a ton of Fortune 500 companies around there. So there's a good chance if you live in one of these areas around the metro Charlotte area and you're working for one of the larger corporations, you'll probably either Uptown, South Park, or Ballantyne. So location there is key. Now, we don't always want to be working, so some fun activities as far as drive times. Now, if you want to go to the mountains, it's about an hour and a half to the Asheville area, beautiful part of the country. It's a little easier to get to the beach. So if you're coming from South Carolina, if you're coming from that Rock Hill area, it's about 45 minutes to Columbia. So if you're a Gamecocks fan and you want to go and watch some college football, great spot to do it. If you want to go to Charleston, it's a little easier. So you're about 3 hours or so from Charleston, about 3 hours to Myrtle Beach and one of the 25 beaches that are around Myrtle Beach. So if you want that kind of location proximity, it's probably easier than like living in Charlotte. So you're having to get out of Charlotte before you hit the highways. It's a real easy commute. So number 4 pro is going to be the local economy in Rock Hill. There's a ton of jobs locally. I did mention in the kind of the location segment that you can be driving to Uptown as far as commute times, but that's not necessarily always the case. In fact, a lot of people that live on the south side of town don't even really go into Charlotte, even though we're part of Charlotte, if that kind of makes sense. There's a ton of jobs in the Rock Hill area, a lot of businesses, a lot of industries. And I'm going to piggyback Fort Mill, which is just the next town over. And they've got a ton of employment opportunities as well. A lot of big companies, mid-sized companies, and of course you've got the mom and pops companies, which is the same as Rock Hill. So you don't necessarily even need to go to Charlotte for work. So as far as industry goes, there's really 3 main industries in Rock Hill. The first one is legal. Historically, Rock Hill is a manufacturing town, so there's still a high influx of manufacturing employment there. And the third one is academic. Obviously, they've got a ton of schools there because it's a big town, so to support the local school system, but there's 3 universities in the area, so that hires a ton of people. So depending on what you're looking for, you might have employment opportunities right on your doorstep. So number 5 is personally one of my favorites, and that's the downtown area. Rock Hill's downtown, it is absolutely fantastic. It's an old, I guess you could say mid-century, typical Main Street USA kind of vibe going on. So you're gonna have those older buildings that have been gutted, renovated, and then just opened up new shops. So there's retail, there's coffee shops, there's art in there, a bunch of great restaurants. So it does have its own downtown, which is great. You can actually park up, walk around and kill a couple of hours, get some coffee. It's a really good place to go, and it's one of my favorite parts of Rock Hill is the downtown area. And as the development has really exploded around it, there's a lot of more new construction, so there's a ton of restaurants, parks, everything all around, but it's all built around that downtown area, and that's kind of the central hub in Rock Hill. It still has that old, quaint, USA town kind of feel to it, and yet it's right on the doorstep of Charlotte. So one of my favorite things to do in Rock Hill is just to go out there, grab some food, go shopping, grab some coffee, go for a walk. We love going down there. It's a great way to kill a couple of hours in the afternoon. Talking about secondary education, because did you know that Rock Hill has 3 colleges? It has Winthrop Clinton College, and it also has York Tech. Now, Winthrop is probably the most popular one as far as people would be familiar with that one. It's got a really nice campus. It's very old, mid-century, and a lot of the town is built up around Winthrop. It's been there for eons. It is a Division I. It doesn't have a football program, but it does have soccer. It does have other sports. I won't mention all of them, of course, but it does have a bunch of other sports. It is D1. It's very well known for its nursing program and for its teaching program. Of course, there's other things, but I hear those are really, really good programs there at Winthrop. Now, also Clinton is a local school. Now, that is historically an African-American school, very, very popular. It's got a lot of roots in the community there, very popular. And last but not least is York Tech. So that's a technical school. This got really popular when the pandemic was going on, when the colleges were shutting down. People were going to smaller tech schools like this and learn trades versus getting your traditional 4-year degree. So that has the option. And the nice thing about York Tech, it's very, very, very cost effective. It's almost, I shouldn't say free, but it's practically free when you're considering the cost and what you get. So if you're thinking about, one of your kids is maybe thinking about further education, but not necessarily the 4-year degree route, this is a great place to go. You can learn all kinds of trades, and that area in Rock Hill has a ton of jobs as well. So it's a great pro in the area. All right, so speaking of killing a couple of hours, number 7 is local activities. There is lots to do. So if you're not the kind of person that wants to go to a downtown area and walk around and shop, I get that, that's fine. There's other things that you can do. There's lots of parks in Rock Hill. They've kept the original parks. They've built some of those old parks up. I'm going to throw out an example. Fountain Park is a park that was renovated about 10 years ago now. Comporium, which is a local internet cable provider, teamed up with the city of Rock Hill and renovated a park. It's incredible. It's got fountains shooting out everywhere. It just really makes the place look really nice. And when you've got those small businesses all built up around it, it just, it's eye candy. It makes the whole area pop. But there's Cherry Park as well, so that's a bigger park. So if you're more into, you want to go out there and get some miles in, you go walking, go running, it has all that, lots of fields as well. Cherry Park's probably one of the most popular parks in there, and there's smaller pocket parks all dotted all around the area. So if you want to go ahead and just spend some time, go to a playground, there's so many things to do there in Rock Hill. Now, a couple things that's real popular as well. Rock Hill has its own tennis court. It's got like a little tennis center. It has a swim center as well. So a lot of the local middle school, high school teams and club teams have swimming centers down in the Rock Hill Aquarium. And also, if you like golf, there's some golf courses in Rock Hill. And if you drive a few miles outside as well, there's quite a few more. So you have all those kind of activities. So whether you like shopping, outdoor activities, or just hanging out downtown, there's things to do in Rock Hill. And again, kind of brings you back to that point. You have Charlotte right on your doorstep. And if you want to go to Charlotte, you want to go uptown, you want to go and watch the Panthers play, it's right there if you want to do it, but you don't have to do that. You have all the amenities there in Rock Hill, and combined with those house prices and the affordability and the activities, things to do, it's really starting to paint a picture why people are starting to call this place home. So number 8 is the diversity. And when we're talking diversity, I'm not necessarily just talking race. Of course, that's part and parcel of it. But in Rock Hill, you have people of all different kind of backgrounds, ethnicity, obviously race. You've got professional backgrounds because you've got people there that are entrepreneurs that have started their own businesses, and also age as well. There's a big diversity in age because anytime you've got a town that has its regular population and then you also have like universities and colleges in the area, that also comes into effect. So you have a really diverse background and economics all there in Rock Hill, and it really goes to display. So when you go into Rock Hill, you can really see the diversity, which is an absolute huge pro. But now we're going to talk about just local schools. So when we're talking local schools, we're referring to elementary, middle, and high schools. So the school district, if you're looking on places like niche.com, which is a really good place to kind of get a gauge on schools, it's rated as a B plus. Now, I'm going to put that in the con column, but I know necessarily a B plus isn't necessarily a bad grade, right? But in context, when you're right next to Fort Mill, and Fort Mill has the strongest school district in the entire state of South Carolina, it does paint a bit of a contrast. But the house prices in Fort Mill are significantly higher than Rock Hill, so kind of that's what you're paying for as part of the parcel when you go into Fort Mill versus Rock Hill. But that's not saying that the schools in Rock Hill aren't good, because there's a ton of schools. If you actually kind of peel back those onion layers and start to look at specific schools in the specific zones, you will see a lot of these schools have A rating. So you've really got to cherry pick. If education, if you've got school age kids and that's really important to you, like I say, reach out to me. We can go ahead and really take a deep dive into certain subdivisions to see where those schools are zoned. I always, like I say, reference niche.com as a point of reference, so you can kind of get a gauge on what the reviews and their grades are. But that is something to take into consideration and can be a concern. Now, a lot of these schools, they are transitioning and they are trending in the right way. These schools are getting a lot better as far as the public schools goes, but you also have other options that are outside of the public schools. So if you're looking at Christian schools, there's Westminster is there. If you're looking for charter schools, they have their charter schools. So you do have options outside of the public school systems, but historically Rock Hill schools haven't been the best. They are, like I say, greatly improving, but that is going to be a negative on the con side for Rock Hill. So the second con I'm going to talk about is the traffic in Rock Hill. Now, traffic in the city of Rock Hill, driving in and around it, isn't bad in of itself. That's not really what I'm referring to here. What I'm really talking to is if you are one of those lucky individuals that has to drive uptown or South Park, Ballantyne on a daily commute, it can be challenging. And the reason why it's mainly challenging is because there's really no alternative routes. The main way to get to Uptown is Highway 77. Now in Rock Hill, there's 4 different exits you can live off, so there's multiple ways that you can get onto 77. But when you're on 77, you're pretty much on there all the way to Uptown, if that's where you're going, of course. Now, there is a few back roads you can take, so if the traffic is bad or maybe there's a small accident, you can do some alternative back road weaving, ducking and diving. But to be completely honest, when there is bad traffic, everybody's got the same idea. So sometimes taking those alternative routes, they don't really help. They add a little bit of stress to your commute and they might shave off, like 90 seconds. So is it really worth it? So that's probably one of the cons that I would talk about. And also coming back, I would say this is probably something you need to be aware of as well, because you do on 77, you do cross a bridge over from Fort Mill to get to Rock Hill. And there's 3 exits that all get off practically at the same exit. It's one exit ramp off, and then you go down to exit A and B. And so if you've probably seen that, I'm familiar with that. So you get off one exit, and there's a couple different options you can get on. That backs up all the way back to the bridge sometimes. So it can be challenging once you're getting across there. Again, there's no alternative routes. You have to cross a bridge. There's another bridge on the, on the west side? Is that the west side? No, the east side of Rock Hill. You can kind of navigate through there. But again, if you're on 77 and you're going to South Rock Hill home and you're coming from Charlotte, the traffic does really start to back up at that bridge depending on what exit you want to live on. So that's a couple of cons that I will kind of throw out. Now, also when we're talking about location, I'm not really going to talk too much about this to give it its own category, but Rock Hill is the furthest south suburb, I guess you could say, in Charlotte. So once you start driving 20, 15, maybe 10, 15 minutes further south outside of Rock Hill, it does get rural pretty quick. So from Charlotte all the way down to pretty much Fort Mill is all kind of one metro area. It's all kind of built up. You get to Rock Hill and it's still kind of part of that metro Charlotte area. But if you start driving further south, you're going to get into a bit more rural area, which is not necessarily a con. People do like that. But there's not a whole lot further south of Rock Hill other than Columbia. So the next real big place to go is Blythewood, which is a northern suburb of Columbia, which is about 45 minutes. So everything really is north or either to the east or the west of you. High-end shopping. Anytime you haven't got any high-end shopping, you typically don't see any high-end dining around there. Now, that's not to be confused with there's not good restaurants in Rock Hill, because that's absolutely not true. There's phenomenal restaurants in Rock Hill. But if your idea for good food is going out spending $200-300 on a steak, it ain't happening in Rock Hill. You're gonna have to go to Charlotte. It's just not, you don't really have those options in Rock Hill. But if you're more on the same speed as me, when me and my wife, or if we go out with a family with the kids, somewhere nice is about $20 a plate. And if you're spending $20 or slightly less on a plate for some good food, there's a ton of options in Rock Hill. There's a lot of local restaurants. There is franchise restaurants, but I'm ignoring those. There's a local restaurants, one-off restaurants, some really nice, and of course microbreweries are popping up everywhere. And that comes with that is some nice dining menus that are kind of tag team. So you do have that. And I will give an honorable mention out here, so don't laugh, but there's a ton of good food trucks in Rock Hill, and they will go to watering holes, and they'll park outside, and they'll have taco trucks and some really good food out there. So don't knock it until you tried it. I'm not sure if taco trucks or food trucks are popular in your side of the country, but again, it's getting pretty popular. Now, also when we're talking about shopping, there is a mall in Rock Hill. It's not the best. If you want to go shopping, there's areas in Rock Hill that you can go outside of the actual mall. But again, if you like high-end shopping, you're gonna have to go to South Park Mall. There's a nice mall in Pineville, which is about 20 minutes away. So you're close to malls if you want to go ahead and spend the afternoon in a mall. But the one in Rock Hill, my personal opinion, it's not fantastic. You know, go there, check it out, let me know what you think, but that's just my personal opinion. All right, guys, so I hope this video brought you some value, because Rock Hill has exploded. How long is it going to stay affordable? Who knows? It's not really a secret anymore, but there is options out there. There's some great lifestyles that you can have. Charlotte on your doorstep. You can have a nice affordable house. Your dollar goes a little bit further and you save money on taxes. These are all positives in here. So I wanted to shine some light, some love onto Rock Hill. So if you're thinking about making a move here to Charlotte, whether it's Rock Hill, one of the other suburbs, Fort Mill here in the South Carolina area, or even in Charlotte, go ahead and reach out to me today. You know, my contact information is right below in the description. I would love to help you and your family make a nice, smooth move right here to the Queen City. And until the next video, I'll see you around town, and God bless.